Right now, commercial generative AI operates almost exactly like a casino. You type a prompt into a text box, hit enter, and hope for a lucky output. The human is reduced to a passive observer pulling a lever on a black box. The industry calls this having a human in the loop, but in practice, this setup traps artists inside corporate algorithms they don't control. They are forced to sift through outputs filled with physically impossible geometry, with mutating faces, and muddy, distorted audio. Delegating the artistic process to an automated factory results in a repetitive, disconnected gallery of visual sludge, lacking the temporal continuity and specific intentionality of true craft. Director Clarisse Curie looked at that web browser-based ecosystem and rejected it entirely. To retain total creative authority, she engineered a completely sovereign, offline operating system built entirely from scratch. She calls it the one-person studio thesis. It proposes that a single human, working alongside an autonomous AI co-architect and relying on extreme, rigorous forethought, can match the visual and acoustic output of a 200-person Hollywood studio. Look at this comparison to understand her core philosophy: transductive symbiosis. On the left is the standard AI loop, but on the right, we see how a master musician interacts with a Stradivarius violin. The AI in Curie Studio functions exactly like that violin, a zero-latency digital transducer that reacts instantly to the artist's physical touch. Engineered as a highly sensitive physical instrument, it doesn't generate its own ideas. It executes massive computational density in strict obedience to the artist's will. Because neural networks do not actually understand physical reality, Curie's production pipeline begins outside. She hand-shoots real 4K footage while riding a fat-tire e-bike across dirt and gravel trails. The studio ingests real GTS telemetry from the ride, calculating physical forces, aerodynamic drag, rolling friction, and velocity frame by frame. Then it layers in battery electrochemistry, tracking real-world voltage sag and state of charge depletion inside the power cells. Grounding the primary motion in real footage and GPS-derived forces creates a mathematical container for the neural synthesis. Instead of letting the AI guess how light or gravity works, the system provides a skeleton of measured reality that the synthesis is forbidden to break. That physical data feeds the interface. Most AI tools run sluggishly in a standard web browser, but the Sovereign OS is a compiled Rust application running directly on bare metal. To make the software feel like a tactile object, it renders natively at 144 frames per second. That gives the system a microscopic computational budget of exactly 6,944 microseconds to render every single frame. The interface itself is built in a 3D rendered Blender 4.4 cycles environment. It features physical hardware elements, like a moving coil modulometer needle that reacts to the live audio mix. This visualization shows how that modulometer operates. The needle's movement isn't a pre-baked animation. It is governed by a live second-order differential equation, reacting instantly to the root mean square amplitude of the 48 kHz audio stream. Mapping the directorial wheel directly to GPU memory removes the friction typical of digital tools. The system functions as a transparent bridge, moving from thought to render with the responsiveness of a physical object. Before any video is generated, the studio enforces Rule 1. Audio is always synthesized first, mastered through a 4-stem Fairlight acoustic engine that handles dialogue, score, Foley, and ambience. This timeline illustrates how the visual length is calculated. The system measures the exact length of the speech audio, adds a 0.45-second tail for room reverb, and multiplies that duration by 24 frames per second. The math locks the visual sequence to the audio stem perfectly. Only after this rigid temporal framework is locked in does the system activate the asymmetric neural grid. It deploys localized models like WAN 2.1 and CogVideo X to synthesize the visual motion within those exact mathematical boundaries. Subordinating visual rendering strictly to acoustic mathematics prevents the AI from improvising. It entirely eliminates robotic lip sync, floating hands, and continuity drift between cuts. The final layer of this architecture is the output. Using this pipeline, Curie produced 2 master films, The Ballad of the Black Duster and The Architect and the Auteur. Together, they form 21 minutes of continuous, temporally locked 4K DCI scope cinema, color-graded to match Eastman 35mm photochemical film. To guarantee the provenance of these files, The final master renders are signed with SHA-256 cryptographic checksums, securing the exact bitstream for complete offline ownership. These flawless 4K masters prove that the 6-tier architecture works in practice. A single artist can bypass the bureaucracy of a Hollywood studio and output a feature-grade product from a desktop workstation. Emotionally resonant, high-fidelity cinema does not require massive budgets, corporate cloud monopolies, or massive rendering farms. Clarisse Curie's system demonstrates that the purpose of extreme computational power is to elevate human craft and execute human intention, never to replace it. In a sovereign studio, nobody says the human is in the loop of the machine. The human is the sole, uncompromising origin of creation.